It was late June, the year was 1582, and Oda Nobunaga was the most powerful man in Japan. He had crushed his rivals in the centre of the country, and the remaining clans were weakened by internal politics. Sensing fate was on his side, he sent all his generals out on aggressive campaigns of expansion. He even had one of his allies go on a victory tour of the Kansai region to celebrate the defeat of the Takeda clan. Meanwhile, Nobunaga thought he'd hold a tea ceremony at Honnoji, a temple in the capital, Kyoto. The tea ceremony, or chanoyu, was his way of demonstrating his wealth and status, cementing his legitimacy as leader of Japan. Before dawn on the 21st, Oda woke to find the temple surrounded by troops. They were led by his supposed ally, Akechi Mitsuhide. Historians have long debated why Mitsuhide turned on his former ally. One story goes that Mitsuhide once served Nobunaga some fish, and Nobunaga complained that the fish was rotten, and ever since then Mitsuhide had held a grudge. Another says that beforehand Mitsuhide visited some poets who held a session of renga, a kind of traditional collaborative Japanese poetry where everyone takes it in turn to compose a line. One interpretation of one particular bar Mitsuhide spat in that fateful cipher is, "Now is the time to rule the world. It's the 5th month." What we do know is that Nobunaga wasn't prepared for a fight. He had some servants with him and a very fancy tea set, but no samurai. Deciding the situation was hopeless, he had his valet help him commit seppuku, then set the temple on fire. Oda Nobunaga's remains were never found, leading some to speculate that maybe he hadn't died at all. Maybe he'd faked his death, like he'd gone, I'm committing seppuku now. Oh, my head. And then hid in the temple loo or something. I mean, I would have totally tried that. But what the Honnoji incident demonstrated was it's not enough to just have the most troops. They have to be in the right place at the right time. Oda Nobunaga is one of 6 rival daimyo you can play as in Jiraku, and they each start in one of these 6 domains. Jiraku means march on Kyoto, and that's exactly what this game's about. Set during the Sengoku period of Japanese history, the tumultuous Sengoku period we might say, a time of great unrest, you and your rival daimyo are going to be clip-clopping across the countryside, seizing territory and creeping ever closer to the capital. Because, oh no, it would be terrible if anything were to happen to the emperor. Jiraku takes place over 3 rounds and it's deceptively simple. Each round you're gonna receive a hand of cards. You're gonna pick 2 and pass them to the player to your left. You're gonna receive 2 from the player to your right, and then you're just gonna play a little trick-taking game until all the cards in your hand are gone. You do that thrice and the game is over. That's it. Surely it can't be that simple. Surely it cannot be as easy as that. I hear you gasp.
So good!
It is not. It's not. I was misrepresenting the content of the game. It's not even complex by trick-taker standards. There are only 3 suits, red, yellow and blue. Each suit has 6 cards numbered 1 to 6 and a ninja. You have to follow whatever suit the first player leads with if you can, and the highest card wins, even if it's not the same suit. A ninja is worth 0. Not in real life ninjas, you are inherently valuable, unless someone's played a 6, in which case the ninja wins. That's it. But Jiraku is simple, like an ambush is simple. Simple like a ninja star in the back. That's my ninja star throwing technique. It's pretty good, right? I know I trained a little bit. You're not really supposed to talk about ninja school. They're a bit funny about you bragging about it because of the whole secrecy thing. Here's revelation number 1. Jiraku is not a trick-taking game.
NANI?!
Winning tricks is unnecessary, it doesn't actually score you any points, and there are situations in which losing a trick is advantageous. What could this be? Come with me, my topsy-turvy monarchs of misrule. Let us unwrap this ludic mackie roll together. Jiraku is actually an area control game. Area control games generally ask you to put drow or architects or statues onto the board, and every so often, maybe at the end of a round, the game checks to see who's got the most in each area and doles out some points. As a genre, it's got a reputation for being a bit nasty, maybe a bit aggressive. It's not like you're all making a lovely garden. At the end, you all get points for your flower beds. Area control is zero sum. If I gain something, it's always at the expense of someone else. If I get something, in fact, it might completely deny everyone else all the points and all the progress they made in that area. Everything you do as well only matters in relation to what the other players are doing. It's like this horrible dance where you've been glued to your partner. Every time you play a card in Jiraku, you can immediately use it in one of two ways. You can either drop up to 3 samurai in the region with the matching number, or you can spend that many action points. To move a samurai to an adjacent region costs 1 action point. To move your daimyo to an adjacent region costs 2, and to kill an enemy samurai in the same region as your daimyo costs 1. Ninjas are special, and we probably don't tell them that enough. They're worth 0 action points, but you can use them to parachute up to 3 samurai into any region. You can split them between multiple regions, and you can even drop them into Kyoto itself, which doesn't have a number. Oh my gosh. 3 members of the Emperor's Kitchen have just whipped off their aprons to reveal katanas and your clan's insignia. Don't worry, your Imperial Majesty will protect you from the bandits and the tedium of the day-to-day running of the country. At the end of each round, once you've played all your cards, you'll check each of the 7 regions to see who comes first, second and third in each. Then you divvy up points. Samurai count as 1 unit and your daimyo counts as 2. If there's a draw for first place, you both get the points for second place, and so on for second. That's it. But wait! Look at this deceptively dull tableau of numbers running along the bottom of the board. They show how many points you'll get each round for first, second and third place. And what's this? They change?
NANI?!
And this is the spice that transforms Jiraku from a merely competent, robust title to a game that fairly aches with delicious pressure. This white rectangle shows you the area each round that will score you the most points, and the more analytically minded amongst you will have immediately perceived that over the 3 rounds it goes ooh, all the way to the capital. In round 1, having control of Kyoto is worth 0. It's worth no points at all, whereas having control of Shinano is worth a juicy 7. So you might think, easy peasy, just get on the blower, have your generals cram samurai into Shinano like commuters onto a rush hour train. Except no. Now it's round 2 and Shinano is worth a big fat 0. It's rubbish, it's trash, and it's Issei where the party's at. Only you're stuck out in the boondocks because you put all your samurai here. And look, there's a faint stirring of interest in the hitherto neglected capital.
ひいては上洛の機を逃す恐れすらある。
Only no, now it's round 3 And wham, Kyoto is worth 15 points to its controller, more than twice what you got for conquering boring old Shinano, and even the regions next to it are worth loads, and you're galloping across Japan trying to reach the capital because it was a trick, a ruse. Your rivals let you commit your forces to suppressing some clan out in the sticks so they could steal a march on the emperor. And this is the guts of Jiraku. This is what lends it its dynamism and thematic weight. Sure, early on in the game you want to assert your authority over a few clans out in the boondocks, but your eye's always on the capital. And of course so is everyone else's, but you're kind of all pretending that it's not. Because the moment you move your samurai into a region, you draw your opponent's attention to it. They're like, hang on, what are you planning here? And maybe they divert some of their own samurai so you don't get the points uncontested. And it's this weird ecosystem of paranoia that means maybe towards the end of each round, maybe you don't want to win tricks, because the winner of the last trick always leads the next hand, and you resolve your cards in order as they're played. So if you go last, you can react to whatever your opponents do and plonk that final samurai into Omi to yoink a majority. Except you can't, because your control is limited to the cards in your hand, and because you have to follow suit if you can, you'll often find yourself having to play a card before you really wanted to, only for the enemy daimyo to come cantering in and slice through your samurai like a Bosch strimmer. As the round progresses, your options shrink, and without a dollop of forethought and a light drizzle of luck, you'll often find yourself at the end of the round holding the card you least wanted to play. You'll very often just see this procession of groans as everyone watches their plans fall apart, and the grand pincer movement you'd planned turns into an ineffectual pinch on the bottom. Because here's another thing. You only have 10 samurai. That's it. Once they're out, you can't place more unless the ones already on the board die. That's why having an opponent's daimyo kill some of your samurai actually sometimes feels like they've done you a massive favour. Now, instead of having to march those samurai across Japan, which costs loads of action points and is incredibly slow, you can just teleport replacements right where you want them. Back to the cloning vats with ye. And I'm not even finished, because although you don't score points for winning tricks directly, each hand triggers a mini area control check in the region containing the winner's daimyo. First place gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points, third place gets 1 point. So in a 3-player game, each round you can score up to 18 points from these interstitial skirmishes alone. But all that winning the trick does is decide where that skirmish takes place. So if your daimyo's outnumbered, it might be advantageous not to win the trick. Joraku is this cat's cradle of tensions where the needs of the present are constantly in a tug of war with the needs of the future. It's not uncommon for one player to take what looks like an insurmountable early lead, only for other players to surge past them late game while they're stuck trying to desperately haul their armies westward. Rarely have logistics felt this fun. There's a liquidity to your positions, a sense of waves cresting and falling that means the conflict never feels too personal. If your samurai get wiped out, they just replenish your reserve, ready to be dropped somewhere else. You feel more powerful, not less. And because the points on offer increase with each round, you never feel like you're out of contention, although it's often politically useful for your rivals to believe you're not a threat, so you can slip between opposing armies and mop up some points for second and third place. If you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you I'm not constitutionally a big area control guy. I think sometimes I'm a bit reluctant to bring them to the table. They can feel a little bit mean, and if someone gets sandbagged by the other players, not necessarily through any fault of their own,
If they fall behind, it can feel a bit bullying. You can have a little bit of a bad time. I'd also say I would have probably said I'm not a big trick taker guy either. I do really love the classic card game Oh Hell, and to me some of the big trick takers of the last couple of years, like Skull King and Cat in the Box, just feel like transparent rip-offs of that game, of speculation whist, as it's sometimes called, with a sort of drizzle of light theme put over the top. Yes, there's more to them than that, although with Skull King, not a lot. But for me, I just felt like I've got my trick taker and I don't really need another one. But I've had such a lovely time with Jiraku. I feel like it's coaxed me out of my curmudgeonly little hobbit hole and forced me to reconsider both genres with fresh eyes. And I should say, like, every time I've brought this to the table and got it out with groups, and I'll do so, with a manic zeal, admittedly, clearly making it clear to people that I'm very invested in them having a lovely time with this game. By the end of the game, someone in that group has declared, I have to own this, and is probably attempting to buy it. In fact, sometimes people have had their phone out at the table attempting to buy it within the first round because they're just like, I know I'm going to love this. Someone I played with ended up buying a display copy that was missing pieces. They didn't mind. They just wanted a copy. I know people who've got copies in other languages because they couldn't find it in English. That's how good it is. It's just feels... Joraku was originally released during lockdown, and I think as a result it got a little lost. The presentation is beautiful but understated, although I should say there are 3 distinct sculpts for the samurai meeples. They don't do anything mechanically different. It's just so they'll look nice. Also, it's just not the type of game that tends to be lifted up by Kickstarter. It doesn't have tons of plastic minis, and I love plastic minis. I'm not above plastic minis. I don't think I'm better than plastic minis. Plastic minis are super cool, right? I get it. But I just think also it came out at a time when local game stores and board game clubs weren't open, the kind of public spaces where people get together and games like this get played and they spread via word of mouth. And I think that's a real tragedy. Of all the injustices in our fallen end times world, perhaps the gravest is that more people haven't played this game. Did I mention that it plays in under an hour? It plays in under an hour. It goes down so smooth. It's rich, it's thematic, and it's so interactive as well. You never feel like you're just... Every other player's move matters to you. So you're not sitting there waiting while someone else combos off. And there's luck, which sort of takes away that feeling that it's like all strategy, and if you're not a master Jiraku player, you're just going to get steamrollered. No, you can always tell yourself that you had a bit of bad luck, but it's not all luck either, because of course you can filter your hand a little bit. You've given away those 2 cards at the beginning and you've received 2, and so 2 of the cards that other player has to play with. Can you use that? Probably not, but there's just this lovely balance of tactical play and trying to figure out where other players are wanting to go, and trying to manipulate your position in the turn order, and trying to make sure that you've got enough action points for late in the game. And no card is necessarily unpowerful either, because the one, although it doesn't give you very many action points, lets you drop samurai into Omi, which on the 2nd and 3rd rounds is worth loads of points, and you can just airdrop people right by the capital. So the value of cards changes over the game. It's got such a lovely arc. I almost feel like I want to make up some complaints so I can seem maybe a more credible advocate for this game, like I can seem more discerning. If I'm gonna nitpick, I guess I would say, honestly, I think the 2-player version where you're each playing 2 daimyo, it feels like a workaround rather than the full flowering of the Jiraku experience. But 3 and 4 Oh, this game shines so much. It feels really nice. I don't want to over-egg the pudding and ruin it for you, but it's so good. I'm conscious that some people are put off by war themes, and I get that. The Sengoku period had samurai and ninjas and warring clans, and that can feel so far off and exotic. It's easy to forget that it was a pretty horrible time for a lot of ordinary people. The way it subsequently got romanticised and the way the big warlords were held up as unifiers of Japan did not set a great precedent for Japanese politics going forward. Let's do political murders. Let's value power and loyalty over basic human rights. But I think it bears repeating, there was no glory in any of this. It was cruel and squalid and grim. If, however, you promise not to become a feudal warlord, you might enjoy, as a little adjunct to Joraku, the two-player war game Sekigahara. It's a game in the block war genre, which basically means your troops are represented by wooden blocks, but only you can see the values on your side. So there's a bit of hidden information and bluffing in the vein of Strategio. The Battle of Sekigahara is considered by most historians to be the climactic engagement of the Sengoku period, a final decisive fight that resulted in the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate and the Edo period, which lasted for over 200 years. So those are my thoughts on Jiraku, a game I think everyone should play. But how about you? Have you ever betrayed a military ally, ruled as shogun for 13 days, then been slain by bandits as you run away? Let me know. Are there other slept on lovely little gems of games that you think I should do a video on, or indeed a poo? Let me know about that. Let me know what games you love, and generally I hope you liked the video. This is my first ever one. I think it says something about how much I like this game that I have actually attempted to make a video at all after spending all my time not working in this medium at all. I really care about it, and I wanted to do something, and hopefully I'm going to make more videos. So over to you, really. I'm not giving you control, obviously. That would be irresponsible, and I don't think you do as good a job as me, despite my failings technically and emotionally. I'm deeply emotionally frail, by the way. Okay, I'm tailing off now. See you in Kyoto. No, that's not gonna. I can't. That can't be my sign off, because that is only appropriate for this video.